meeting to order. Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of the Nebraska statutes, notice of this meeting was given on March 6, 2018. Pursuant to Section 84-1411 of the Nebraska statutes, the next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be held Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018 at 9 a.m. in the boardroom at the Teacher Administrative Center, 3215 Cumming Street, Omaha, Nebraska. The agenda will be kept current and available for public inspection in the retirement office at the Teacher Administrative Center during regular working hours. Pursuant to Section 84-1412 of the Nebraska statutes, the public is hereby informed that a current copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the Board of Education meeting room on the north wall. Please call the roll.
Erickson.
Here.
Evans. Here. Havlovic. Here. Jones.
Here.
Purdy.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Reba.
Here.
7 present.
Okay, we have a quorum. Okay, on the agenda, I'm going to move up item number 6, the discussion and action on legislative update to be the next item. Cecilia, I recognize you for that.
Okay, I want to bring the board up to speed on Legislative Bill 1005, Amendment 2204, which was the catch-all amendment to incorporate some procedural changes to various pension plans and retirement plans in the state of Nebraska. And ours included the change in mortality table, along with a date certain for contributions to the OSERS plan. The bill has gone through first and second reading. It is slated for final reading. I don't have a date yet. In addition to which, the Legislative Committee asked for an actuarial cost study from Kavanaugh McDonald concerning the change in mortality table. That was issued down to the Legislative Committee, and according to Kavanaugh McDonald, there is no cost for this change. There is no cost for this change. Secondly, Legislative Bill 548, Amendment 2595, is up on the floor for debate this morning. Yesterday, I was asked for a fiscal note to accompany that amendment, and basically the fiscal note indicated what the projected contributions are. That would be the revenue to OSERS, so roughly plus or minus 18 million for the fiscal year ending 2018, and plus or minus 300 million for the fiscal year ending 2019, if the bond noted with if the bonds are sold. I've also been informed that there are senators who are concerned with the way 2595 is currently written, which permits the district to not fund additional required contributions until 2026. And that is going to be a subject of discussion today on the floor, and there could be floor amendments to it. So that's what I've heard from Lincoln thus far.
Is 2595, is that a new amendment, like brand new?
Yes, that was dropped March 27th. Oh, that's the date on it, March 27th. So 27th or 28th of March, the amendment was dropped, or filed, I should say.
Do we have a copy of that? Is that in here?
It was in your PDF package. I did not reprint the entire for today.
That was in the email you sent?
Yes.
It's a lengthy amendment,
Yeah.
but there's only a small number of changes.
I only put the, yeah, you have the whole copy.
I have the whole copy here.
So it's not, the amendment's not saying that the district won't pay any money for 7 years. It's saying that in the event that there's extra needed beyond and above, that they won't be having to pay it.
Until 2026 is when they begin to recognize the additional required contributions. In addition to which, the Legislative Committee requested our actuary do an analysis that is just handed to you today, to conduct an analysis on the impact, the fiscal impact of postponing, of taking receipt of $300 million and postponing the required contribution until 2026. Yes. And it was conducted with the caveat of what if there is a bad market cycle, what if there's a moderate market cycle, and what if there is a great, strong market cycle. And so the investment returns that were used was 5.25% to indicate a weak market, 7.5% to indicate a moderate market, and 9.75% to indicate a strong market. The actuary was also asked to run the same analysis with the addition of a $20 million reduction to OSERS payroll, OSERS membership payroll. And what the conclusion was, at 5.25% return, at the end of the 7-year period, the district would be required, it's anticipated, the district would be required to put in an additional $38 million.
You're looking at A1,
That would be on A1, correct?
and then that's in what year?
That would be in 2026.
Okay. I'm not finding that number. I'm just, help me find the number, I guess.
Looking at A1,
Yep.
third column in from the right.
Under
Okay, so that's the
district additional.
District
Okay.
additional, right.
And that's actually, looks like it lines up in 2027? Yeah,
Yeah, it's 2027. Cecilia.
okay.
Well, January 1, right.
So at
And-
18 is 19.3 million, then the pension obligation bond is sold in 2019, 300 million goes in.
Because the amendment said that the district would infuse the $300
Right,
million
into
on
the
or
debt.
before December
Right.
31, 2019.
Right, gotcha.
And you're otherwise comparing with what it would have been without that provision is back
On the left side.
On the left side.
under the district additional
That's
contribution.
Correct.
current, right, because we just put it.
And then the difference in the very right column, okay.
So that's at 5.25% return, which is what we're indicating to be a weak market.
Okay.
Okay? So now if we look at A2, same scenario, except we're looking at a moderate market of 7.5% return. And again, when we come out of the,
In the 7.5 return, that's just meeting our,
our bogey, our
Assumption,
yeah.
assumption, correct,
which the Nebraska Investment Council wasn't even investing for.
has already indicated over the next 10 years that they're looking at anywhere from 6.1 to 6.3.
Okay.
And so when we come out of the
7-year holiday.
it's $14.7 million expected.
Well, it wouldn't be a holiday. The the district would still be paying 20 million for the 300 million. You'd pay a 22 million contribution above the 101%. That's still coming in, Lance. That doesn't go away.
Okay.
So those costs, like the 14.7, that's on top of the 22 million that's going to be paid for the pension obligation bond. That's
Right.
paid annually.
Yeah, but
You
it's
have
not
to pay
coming
it
in, it's not coming into OSERS. That's
No,
what
the
this is.
300 million goes into the NIC
Correct.
for OSERS, and then the district pays 22 million a year for the pension obligation bond that went into the NIC for OSERS.
But that's a separate
Yeah.
issue. That's the district's issue. That's not an OSERS issue.
Well, I know, but it's not a holiday. He said it was a holiday. The district's still having to cut budgets and reduce staff to get the 22 million, so
Okay, well, you can call it whatever you want, I guess. What-
I wouldn't call it a holiday if you're laying people off.
It's a.
It would be a holiday to me.
It's a contribution.
It's a
I guess it's a holiday if they no longer have a job. but-
It's a contribution holiday. You're not putting in contributions is what you're not doing.
Well,
You're paying
putting it
for the
into
bond,
You're
that's for
paying
sure.
into the bond, but it's,
Right.
you're still paying, the district's gonna have to come up with that
Right,
somehow, some way. I mean,
right.
you and I will be in a meeting tomorrow night trying to figure out how we're gonna come up with $26 million, Don. I mean,
Now, if you,
it's just trying to figure out which is the worst scenario. That's what you're trying to figure out. Which is most costly?
excuse me,
Is it doing the left side, which goes at 18.7, 21.3, 23.5, 25.3 million, up to 26 million by 22? Or is it better to do a pension obligation bond? I mean, that's what you, and there is a risk. I get that with the 7.5. You're trying to figure that out.
Mhm.
That's what you're trying to figure out, but.
And I think as we have said before, I don't think no one here is objecting to the bond thing put in. I think that's understood.
Right.
Okay?
okay, and then if we look at A3, with a very aggressive market of 9.75 through 2031, with the infusion of the 300 million, the district would not, it's anticipated the district would not have additional required contributions, but that's looking at an aggressive market. Okay. Now, if we look at A4, again, at 5.25% return, the $300 million in at 2019, with a $20 million reduction of payroll effective January 1, 2019. At the end of the holiday period, the district would be looking at roughly $43 million as an additional contribution. And this is assuming that the $20 million reduction takes place in 2019, but then going forward, our experience study assumptions we adopted last year continue. So growth rate continues back. Okay. All right. A5 indicates $300 million bonds, 7.5% return, and $20 million reduction to payroll. At the end of the period, the district is looking at roughly $20 million as additional contribution.
Do we have somewhere where, I see where all the zeros are. Do we have somewhere where how much that would be, so if the district gets permission to issue these $300 million of bonds, and they pay that money to us, then roughly how much additional would they then be on the hook
If they had been
for?
paying during, yes, that was in a previous report, if you recall, and I didn't bring it with me, but those numbers were single digits. I think it started off at like 2 million, 3 million.
So then the extra amount at the end of the 7-year period would be the effect of those little amounts adding up with the whole time value of money.
Correct, you are absolutely correct.
Okay.
Okay, and finally, A6, Again, $300 million, 9.75% return, $20 million reduction to OSERS payroll. You come out at the end of 2031 with no additional contributions. And the actuary felt for this exercise, so often she's asked to conduct this analysis over the course of 30 years. But for this particular exercise, she felt better to just cut it short and show the short term because it's so variable once you get further out. And this report strongly encourages a true-up.
Doesn't the legislation have a true-up in that 548? Like
Yes.
after 5 years or something? 6 years?
Currently, the true-up is slated for 7 years. In 2026 is the current writing recommendation in Amendment 2595. And that is a concern, that's too long of a period to wait to revisit whether additional contributions should be made or not.
Could we go back and maybe select out of all of these, maybe one set of assumptions and concentrate
Okay.
on that, just so we all understand as well as we can the numbers? I mean, my preference might be just to base it on the 7.5 return, which is our rate of return, and then we're simply contrasting one schedule which doesn't have the $20 million change and one that does. And then maybe, so I guess we might start with
A2.
A2, okay. And then,
All right, so, just to start with, so if everything stays status quo, everything being equal, at the end of that period of 2031, the district, if they made every contribution, would have put in an additional $423.9 million.
yeah,
With what they did put in, the 12.8, the anticipated 18.9, plus the 300 million from the bonds, plus future additional required contributions, at the end of the 2031 period, it looks as if the district will have put in 409.3 million.
okay.
That represents a savings of roughly 14.5 million over that 13-year period. However, when you come out of the 7-year period, you're looking for $14 million.
In addition to their
Yes.
Payments,
This
right.
is all in addition to the statutory 1% of employee contribution and the bond payments.
How long would the district be paying the bond payments for?
25 years, right?
Is what we've
It's a
heard.
25-year bond.
Okay.
So then, Cecilia, wouldn't it be fair if you were looking this on a global basis, which I think Mark is trying to do here? You'd also have to lay in the bond payments in here too, wouldn't you? Because,
Yes, and the actuary did reference that in her narrative, that to fully understand this and appreciate this study, you should have the bond payments alongside, but we are not privy to, at least as of last week, we weren't privy to, because trust me, she worked on this over the weekend, not privy to the interest rate terms, so.
Well, you don't know the interest
Right.
rate until it goes out.
Exactly. So
They
you
talked
can't.
about it in the board meeting. They had bond counsel was there and Bruce Leffler. So it's on the
That
board.
was
It
two,
at the-
right, 2 meetings
And
ago,
so their
right?
projection it's projection because you don't know.
Right.
But in the public meeting, he suggested that $300 million would be approximately $20 20, 22 million a year is going to be your payment.
It's about
You
right.
know, yeah, just
Mhm.
projecting, because you're thinking 4 to 4.5%.
That'd be pretty good. Rates are going up, so.
They are going
It
up.
wouldn't be any less than 4.5, I'd guess.
That was the big conversation at the open meeting with the board, is rates are going up, and so if you're going to do it,
You gotta do
better
it
to
now.
than
Right.
wait
Right.
2 years later and have a higher interest rate, so.
But I think to do this analysis, and you'd have to look at that 409, and you'd have to then lay in the bond payments on top of that. So that, and if the bond payments were $22 million a year, they're really not saving anything according to this.
Right. Correct,
Is that right?
correct. 22 times the 13.
And that's,
Overall.
these are millions, and you add
Yes.
22 to that,
Yes.
Well, a year,
a year.
yeah.
Oh, but then you take out the 300. Right?
No.
Well, they've got to come up with the 300. They're still got to pay the 300 back to the bondholders.
Yeah.
So they're paying that back plus the interest,
But if
so.
we'd look,
Yeah.
if we just.
I'm looking at a cash flow basis. I mean, they're having to
Let's
come
look
up
on
with
the-
that
On the left
cash.
side of A2, I
Yeah.
mean, you've got the schedule, which adds up to 423.9.
And you know, actually, and you just said, Mr. Erickson just said something, let me emphasize, this analysis is done with a net contribution of 300 million. So that means after bond expenses, we have to receive the 300 million, not issue bonds for 300 million. We have to receive 300 million. That was the error one of our counterparts did with their first bond issuance. They issued the bonds for, you know, I don't remember the exact number, but the cost of issuing the bonds was taken out of the proceeds, and consequently, the plan did not receive the full amount they were originally doing their analysis on. So again, I emphasize, this is a net receipt of 300 million.
I mean, if you look at this now, if you look at, let's just take the year 2020, for example. The district, what they would look, based on this analysis, would be putting in 23.5 million if we don't do anything at all, right? Under the proposal, they would put in nothing because of
Nothing
this-
additional.
Nothing additional, I don't mean nothing, but nothing additional, but they'd be putting in $22 million in a bond payment,
20.
whatever that number
Whatever that
is,
number is.
whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And you just, you know, you would just follow that down until you get to where they were supposed to put in 14.7, and you add 20, whatever the number is, to that
12
number.
years. 12 years in
Yeah,
at that rate, I think.
yeah, so, again, we're looking at this from OSERS perspective.
Correct.
If you're looking at it from the districts, but I would think that's what they would want to be looking at, is how much cash are they going to come up with in the future to do that, so. To be fair, that's what you're looking at. And I think that's what the analysis on page 3, that little chart that you put together, I think that just kind of summarizes all of this, right?
Yes,
What we're
correct.
looking at, so.
And what our funding status is at the result of if everything happens the way it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
You turn now to what display?
Page 3.
3, the top.
The chart on top of page 3.
Yep.
She just summarizes everything in these charts,
Yep. Oh, they're just the totals?
the totals, yeah,
Yeah.
just so you can see the totals.
Well, I mean, it strikes me as being pretty compelling when you add in the $22 million on the right side of the OPS conclusion that this is a good deal.
I think our concern now is, you know, again, we've gone on record, we're not opposing the bond. Obviously, that's good for the plan, that's good for our members. I think what we really have to look at, though, is this, whatever you want to call it, holiday, or not truing this up more frequently than they're looking to do, because they're looking to stretch this out all the way to 2026.
Correct.
And I think at that point in time, the way the legislation reads, whatever they come up with, whatever they need to put in additional, they then have 4 years to pay that back. So it even gets stretched out longer than that. And then at the end of that period, they do another study, and then they have, if there's more to be put in. They have 4 years to pay that back. So it really is just pushing this can down the road, so to speak, by doing that from the OSERS perspective. I can understand why the district wants to do that. It's good for them, but I don't think it's good for OSERS to allow that to happen. And I think that's where some of the controversy is coming in Lincoln, I'm going to suspect, with that provision. These are comments?
And then the money don't get invested either if you don't get it in there, so you're maybe losing a little bit that way also.
Kind of probably of minor significance, but we tend to look just at the dollars. And if you follow the payroll is escalating, and it goes up, by, I think, 2026, about 35%. So, I mean, the dollars should obviously follow that, and the contributions. I mean, that's something, when you look out 30 or 40 years, you say, oh my God, those numbers, you put it in the context of the 2018 economy, it's not, it's a 2018 plus 30 years economy.
Yeah.
So that's one of,
That's
it
a good
doesn't, it
point.
isn't so difficult looking 5 years out, but as you go further out, just looking at dollars and trying to judge them based on 2018 dollars, it's not fair.
Yeah,
I think
and that's a good
something
point.
That's a very good
Has
point.
always been, we never really talked about that before, but particularly when you look out 30 and 40 years and say, oh my gosh. I mean, yes, they're big numbers, but as a percentage of payroll, it's somewhat more in balance, even though when you even look at them as a percentage of payroll, it is going up a little bit under all of Pat's scenarios. But, I mean, setting aside everything else, I've always been uncomfortable with, I don't want to be unfair, but gimmicks in terms of, you have the best information available in terms of what the contributions are. When you start to mess with it, so to speak, in terms of restrictions, it seems to me it just is never a good thing. Because then it leaves you open to next, when you reach 2026, then what do you do in terms of another adjustment to recognize the best recommendation you've got in terms of what the cost of the plan are. So the best cost of what the plan are on the left side, based on forecasts, as based on assumptions. Anything artificial just seems to open the door, but
And if you'll recall, when Pat did a study earlier, late last year, that showed in order to fully fund this, they had to put in an additional $20 million every year with a 3% escalator. That got us to full funding, so. Which is different than obviously this. I mean, this doesn't, we don't reach full funding with this. And we know the 300 million won't do that, but it certainly gets us somewhat closer to where we want to be.
It's tough either way. I don't see an easy answer either way. It's tough.
no,
There's certainly examples. 2004, Capers did a bond issuance that worked and helped them save millions of dollars. In 2012, they did a follow-up for $1 billion that helped Capers to the tune of $200 million.
2015, yeah.
20, I think it's 2012. Yeah, I think. I'm pretty sure it's 2012. So there are examples where it has helped, but you can't guarantee anything, Don, on those percentages. You never can. You never can. I mean, if we'd have known our investment returns would have done so poorly after 2008, I mean, we wouldn't have done some things we did, but we didn't know.
Right,
No one knows that. So, but that's where we are today. So I don't know. It's 6 1 half dozen the other for me. Either way, it's tough. And the likelihood of it passing, I'd say, is no better than 50-50 from what I know. And to me, it's 6 1 half dozen. I really don't see a huge. I think it might be helpful. As I said, Capers benefited from the 2004 infusion and the 2012 infusion. They've got evidence of that that's pretty clear. But there's no guarantee that this would. And so.
But I think if you look at it from OSER's perspective, it would be helpful. I mean, obviously, it's going to be helpful for us.
Yeah, you got
That is a good thing.
Guaranteed $300 million comes in definitively.
So that's
on
good,
that
that's
date.
good.
Yeah.
And didn't the Capers thing, we talk about that a lot,
Yeah.
that first Capers issue, didn't they also have lottery revenue that came in to pay the bond payments?
That's
So they had a revenue source that was tied into that, which made it easier. Obviously, if you had a soda pop tax or
I
something
wish
that
we
came in
had
to
a
pay
lot.
it. You know, to do that, I mean,
I wish we had
that would be good. That would be
Yeah,
a better thing.
That would be fantastic.
So that's why it worked really well in Kansas, because they had a mechanism to pay their bonds through the law. Now, I know that the $1 billion one did not have that.
Right.
So it was different, but the one that's working well, it had a revenue source that made the payments.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you had a lottery then that's paying your
It's
pension.
a different deal where the state's running it so they can do things that a school district can't, which is our challenge. We can't add a lottery or add a half-cent sales tax. We don't have the capacity to do that, whereas the legislative body can.
Right.
So that's the bummer of our situation.
One more question about display. Do we have a display that doesn't impose the freeze on contributions in that period of time? You know, accepting the 300 million, and then what the additional contributions would be for that would be substitutions for the zeros?
Yes, I do believe.
But it's not here.
It's not here, yeah. That was one of the earlier ones that was sent out.
Okay.
I don't remember what the numbers are. I should have had a book.
Did we get that in February?
I'm not sure. But it seems like that would be. If that were available, it would be seen to be useful information in contrast to the left side is not assuming a bond. It's assuming the bond and a waiver of contribution, additional contributions. It's probably not going to be such that it would be directly comparable anyway, I don't know. But
I mean, at the last meeting then, I guess it was the last meeting, you know, we voted to take a neutral stance on 548. And that's what I did. And I don't see there, if there's anybody here that thinks we ought to do anything different than that today, I guess, let me know. I think we've let them know that we're in favor of the bond. I think that's important. I don't think unless I see any difference here, but I think the thing we do object to, well, I would object to, is in the amendment is this holiday period, or whatever we want to call it. I don't think we like that.
deferral.
From a fiduciary standpoint, I don't think that's good for the plan to have that in place, so.
Well, I agree with that, and I also, I mean, to me, it opens the door to just further manipulation. I mean, if you can do this in 2018, why wouldn't you reconsider it again in 2026? As arguably, things are not going to be flush. I mean, you know.
Yeah, right.
Maybe you wish that it were, but.
Hey, Jim, I understand you have a motion. Unless there's any other, go ahead and make a motion that we can discuss.
For closed session,
No.
for the resolutions.
Yes.
Whereas the following recitals and resolutions were taken at a scheduled meeting of the Board of Trustees of Omaha School Employees Retirement System on the 4th day of April 2018. The recitals, whereas the Board of Trustees of the Employees Retirement System for School District of Douglas County 0001, the OSERS Board, is charged with the administration of the Omaha School Employees Retirement System in a fiduciary capacity in accordance with the Nebraska law. And whereas the OSERS Board has reviewed Amendment 2595 filed in Nebraska Legislature on March 27th, 2018 to LB 548, the amendments attached hereto and incorporated herein by this reference. And whereas Section 6(2) of the Amendment 2595 to LB 548 provides for the Omaha Public School District, the district, to delay input of additional actuarial required contributions to the system until 2026. And whereas the OSERS Board takes a neutral position with respect to Amendment 2595, other than its opposition to Section 6 thereof, resolution, now therefore be it resolved that the OSERS Board, by majority vote, takes a neutral position with respect to Amendment 2595, except for its opposition to Section 6(2) thereof, permitting the Omaha Public School District the ability to delay contributing additional employer contributions to the OSERS plan until the year 2026.
Okay, Jim has moved that resolution. Do I have a second?
I would second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now, discussion.
So it's a change of the neutral position, as I understand what you read, Jim, is that what you're wanting, a change of the neutral position?
No, it stays a neutral
Or
position.
stay in neutral, yes.
But you mentioned something else, you mentioned Section 6. What did you mean by that, Jim?
Resolve the OSERS Board, by majority vote, takes a neutral position with respect to Amendment 2595, except for its oppositions to Section 6.
Yeah, what was your opposition to that?
Well, that's what we've been talking about. That's
The delay.
That's the true-up period.
I just wanted to hear it. Just an answer to it. You made the motion. I'd just rather keep the full neutral position we had before, but, I mean, I understand how those go here, so.
But things have changed a little bit since we were here a month ago. I mean, some of these things are new to the
I agree.
discussion.
I mean,
right?
that's new to me too. This just came out yesterday, and I do agree it's a little different. I wouldn't profess it's not. I just think the neutral position is still appropriate. That's where I'm gonna be. I understand everybody has a vote, and I got one too, so.
Yeah, well, I just want to be clear. I mean, we're not changing the neutral position. We continue to have a neutral position on 548. The only thing and also with the, what was the amendment, 2595, except for that one section that has to do with the true-up period. That's all.
No, I
Everything else we
understand.
agree with
I
that.
understand.
Yeah, we're objecting to the deferral of the additional contribution.
Correct.
Or,
Over the 300 million that went in, and then after the 300 million goes in, then till 2026, on top of the 300 million, putting the additional.
and we don't have the display that's consistent with that right now, apparently.
There may well be no, when we do another experience study, there
Right.
may be nothing, and that's
our hope.
fine.
Right.
That's our hope,
Right,
so,
that's
but
what's the hope.
we're here to protect the plan, and I mean, what's fiduciarily responsible wouldn't be to allow this 12-year period with no additional payments given when they're really required. I mean, that's part of the problem we've gotten into. We weren't putting in enough. It's all about contributions, and that's what we have to guard against.
Is there not a, I remember, an amendment or a bill or something that Senator Coachman put in saying that the district had to pay, the full up to 100%? And I think he took off the, or else we'll, tie you to the tree and beat on you or something.
That's
Yes.
part of this other piece of legislation.
Right.
It now just puts in a date, certain, August 31st, it has to be paid.
So would that then be in conflict with this LB 295?
It'd be whatever was required by law they'd have to put in by August 31st. According to this, if this new law passed, it wouldn't be required until 2026, so there would be no payment to pay by August 31st.
So even though Senator Coachman's bill says every year, they have to, the district needs to pay. So
What's
we're
due,
100%.
right.
What's due.
And so what's due, but it
This
wouldn't be
bill
due.
says, yeah, but for 7 years, they
If you
can.
put in 300 million,
If you put in 300
we'll
million.
let you go 7
We'll-
years
we'll-
before you start
we'll
paying
put
on
you a
top of the
break.
300 million that you're paying for. That's what it says. Because you put in 300 million as a chunk,
All right, so,
instead of,
so it wouldn't be in conflict
escalating
with that
chunk.
other bill?
No.
because you put in 300 million,
Because the bonds were sold.
and that went right into Nick. So
Right.
Nick started investing that from the day they got it. They started investing that for OSERS.
What would it look, if I'm out, if you're like, Purdy, shut up, that's okay, I can handle it. But instead of paying a bond, you know, what are you paying, 22 million?
That's what the
to pay off
projection
the
is. You don't know
bonds?
for sure, because you don't know your interest rate.
What would it
Could
look
be
like
more.
if you just, you know, paid the retirement system, just say, you know what, you know,
That's
we're
on the
gonna
left
pay
side.
you-
The left side's got that.
That is the
well, but
left
no, we're gonna pay you, you know, starting 2019, $21.5 million or whatever every year for the next, however long you said that you're gonna pay on the bond. Would that, I guess that wouldn't be,
You could do that
You
too.
could do that.
I mean,
They
you
could
save
pay as
the
much as
fees
they
for
want.
paying the bond company.
But the ARC goes up, it's above 21 million, and so you wouldn't meet the statutory requirement. You're gonna go above the 21 million.
No, that's true.
And so you can't do that, or you won't meet the statutory requirement, because you gotta meet that ARC payment.
I just
And
hate,
it quickly goes
I hate
up.
that the bond company's getting a cut of our misery.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on
Right.
that. I
Hold
agree
on, now,
with
just
you.
a minute, you know, banks are, you know, they need
Well-
to make a living too. I object to that.
Well,
I agree with you on that. I totally agree, I understand.
Well, I'll just restate again, my opposition to the deferral of the additional contribution simply stems from the fact that the closer the OSERS is able to follow and OPS is able to follow the scheduled contributions forecast by the actuary, the better. It seems unlikely to me the next 7-year period is unique in the cycle of financing school administration, and why that particular period of time is so special to deserve additional contributions. When you reach 2026, the likelihood of having that same stress under OPS is going to be similar. And then we're looking for maybe yet another deferral. And the more you mess with it, the further you get from reality. I mean, this is the reality on the left side.
I mean, I don't disagree, I agree with everything you just said. I think from the district's perspective, though, they're just trying to say, we want to know what those payments
Well, I
are for
understand
sure
that.
for the next
But
7
I'm just saying,
years.
they're going to want to
We
know
know
what
the
those
bond
payments are.
payment.
They're just as
That's
interested
all
in
we
the
need.
payments 26 through 2033 as they are now. I mean, put yourself forward.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, I just don't see things being flush and having a budget in OPS that's so easy to manage in 2000.
It's tough either way, that's why I said it's 6,
Yeah,
1,
it
half
is.
dozen.
Tough,
I think it's
yeah.
tough either way.
Yeah, it is. And I understand
for
the
me.
desire to see it level,
Yeah, and predictable, level and predictable.
but it's not
tough because
realistic.
there's some
It's
unreal-
not real world.
I mean, Cecilia, when would, let's assume for a second then that 548 passes, this section of the bill is not part of it, okay? When would be the next time we would do a study to where they'd have to put in an ARC or money? When would that occur?
Okay, so the bill passes, and you're saying that 2026 is not, but just when is our next experience study?
Yes.
When did we, 16, so it's 2020.
So it's going to be a while anyway.
Right. It is, the law
Right.
requires that experience studies are conducted every 4 years now. So we just had an experience study for 2012 to 2016 that was presented to the board in early 2017. So the next experience study will be for the period of 17, 18, 19, and 20, and it'll be presented to the board early 2021.
So then okay, let's assume it says there's a $5 million payment needs to be made, that's shortfall. When would they have to put that in?
According to the terms of
Yes.
LB 548, the employer contribution would be increased from 101% to whatever percentage the actuary recommends, and then that would be contributed over the course of the next 4 years.
No, but that's going to not be part of the bill. I'm saying if we do this next experience study and it says
Oh.
you're short $5 million, when does the district have to put that in?
The
It's
end of that
August
fiscal year.
31st.
End of that fiscal year. which
What
will be
fiscal
August-
year? 21?
2021.
Okay. So there'll be no payments, more payments until 2021 anyway, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So those zeros will be there until 2021 anyway, because we won't do another experience study. So the district does, for a number of years, then, will have a level payment, assuming the bond goes in,
Correct.
because we won't be asking for any additional.
Additional, right.
Everybody clear on that? Does that make sense?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Yep, it did.
Okay. All right, is there any further discussion on Jim's motion? All right, if not, you may call the roll.
Ripa,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Havlicek, Purdy,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Evans,
No.
Erickson.
Aye.
6 ayes, 1 nay.
Okay, motion passes. All right, we'll go back to the agenda, and the next I will call on somebody to go into closed session.
I move the Board of Trustees goes into closed session to protect the protection of the public interest and for prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals, to discuss with legal counsel, the executive director, and James Ellis, legal matters affecting the trust fund and other financial matters affecting retirees.
Okay, it's been moved to go into closed session. Is there a second?
Second?
All right, is there a discussion? Seeing none, you can call the roll.
Evans. Erickson.
Aye.
Havlicek.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Purdy.
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Ripa.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Let me remind the board that the purpose for the closed session is for the protection of the public interest and for the prevention of needless injury to the reputation of individuals,
Yes, please.
to discuss with legal counsel, the executive director, and James Ellis, legal matters affecting the trust fund and other financial matters affecting retirees.
Long report,
I was using the light version.
Okay, can I collect these, please?
So are we back?
We're back in.
We're back in, okay, we're back in open session at 10:06. Would you call the roll, please?
Oh, sorry.
Erickson.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Havlicek.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Purdy.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Ripa.
Here.
7 present.
Okay, we have a quorum. I will call on, who do I call on? Who has the,
How about me?
oh, Lance. Okay, Lance, I'll call on you for a motion.
Yeah. All right. I would like to move that we ratify the April pension payments in the amount of $9,934,417.69 to 4,691 payees. I'd like to approve the April staff payroll in the amount of $33,655.34. Approve 4 new retirement annuities effective April 1st, 2018. Approve the termination of the annuitant's payments due to death to 15 retirees. Approve refunds to 10 former members of OSERS requesting payout of employee contributions, plus applicable interest in the amount of $173,200.15. Approve accounts payable for April in the amount of $31,172 each.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Discussion? All right, seeing none, you may call the roll.
Purdy.
Aye.
Havlicek.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Ray.
Aye.
Ripa.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, motion carries. All right, the next item on your agenda are the minutes from our meeting in March. Are there additions, changes, corrections to the minutes from anyone? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Roger moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, you may call the roll.
Ray,
Aye.
Purdy,
Aye.
Havlicek, Evans,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Ripa,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to agenda item 7, discussion and action on district funding of OSERS.
No, we had it in the legislative update, so it's not necessary.
All right. Then we'll move on to financial statements and budget.
Okay.
Can I, one more comment on that legislative and
Sure.
funding piece. We just had a vote, and it might be well for Senator Colton to know how we voted. There's some confusion on the floor. One of the trustees sent a note to teachers saying, don't support the bill. And so there's some confusion as a result of that. Because the note was sent to all the teachers, but the trustees said not to support it. From the trustees.
The note I said was, we gotta be careful with this amendment, but I'll make sure, can I text now, or is that gonna break the rule? I'll make sure that we're definitely in favor of
The teachers took it different than that.
Okay.
Lance, they're telling senators otherwise. So I
Oh.
wish we'd have talked
The
about
calls we're
that
getting
here.
are different than that first.
Okay.
The calls we're getting are different than that too.
Different
Support.
than support, right. That's what I'm getting to. is
Okay.
that The
Well, then
email
maybe it's
from
not
Lance is
I sent
now
it last night at
impacted.
9 o'clock last night.
I wish we'd have had that conversation, because I thought we voted neutral, and now we got one of our members sending emails. And so now I'm getting blown up. You're a trustee, is that what you decided? I said, no. So it's,
Well, can we send a copy of that resolution
We did,
to?
Yes, our person down in Lincoln has been notified that the resolution passed by majority vote, and they know that it's
but
neutral.
you see the confusion when one of
Right.
the trustees sends out an
Well-
email the night before.
No, I can't control the trustees.
I don't
With the
know
except-
how- I don't
with
know how
the-
we, I don't know how we correct that.
So I'm sorry, what's the word on the street?
Lance sent an email that said, in the words of the teachers who are sending it to me and to senators, not to support it. And we had voted neutrally as a trustee board, but he sent an email to the teachers yesterday at 9 o'clock.
Well, the email I sent, I said there's an amendment, a portion of that amendment that I have some concerns with, and NSEA should have some concerns with.
I can read part of it, or at least what was sent to
Yeah.
me, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be way helpful.
Well, you wrote it.
Yeah, I know.
You know what you wrote.
You know, it's like gave me a telephone, I want to see where it ended up. I'll pull it up on mine,
I'm
too.
just curious why one trustee is sending notes about a bill we've taken a vote on. I didn't know I don't do that. I try to represent the position at the table. Maybe that's not a concern to anybody else.
No, I mean,
Well, I'm just interested to understand it better.
yeah, I'd like to understand too.
Pull yours up here.
I mean, if you hear the discussion around the table, it's pretty obvious what our opinions are, so,
Today.
today,
The email
and last
sent last
month.
night prior to the conversation today.
You have to understand.
It says something to the effect of the district could have paid $20 million a year. They had an opportunity to do that, but they didn't do that. Instead, they're doing some craziness like this.
But instead, they hire a bond company, yeah. But if you read above there, it says, put amendment on saying, oh yeah, by the way, OPS won't have to pay any additional monies for about 7 years. Right?
Which is really not accurate either, because you're paying $20 million to $22 million for the obligation bond. Again, my point, and even the bigger point of the inaccuracy of that, is that if we took a vote for neutrality on the bill, which we did in the last meeting, you send a note that's obviously in opposition, and now I'm getting all these emails, and they say, aren't you a trustee? And I say, well, I am, but I don't control what other trustees send out. I guess
Okay.
Lance is gonna send out what he wants to send out.
Yeah,
Obviously, he doesn't care what we do, he's gonna do what he wants to do.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I was just sending out, just letting my OEA president know what's going on and having him get the word out.
I wish you had reflected what we talked about here, because I thought that's
Okay.
what we were supposed to do. I mean, if we're all gonna just do our own thing, I don't know why we're taking votes on things, if we're all just gonna send our own emails.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right.
But I don't know how everybody else feels. Maybe you feel like our votes, we should say whatever we want and send out whatever we want. I don't know how everybody else feels.
Well, I feel what you state should be accurate. And I mean, it's a little hard to sort all this out. I mean, it's a choice of words. The opposition, I think, arose because of the deferral of the payments.
Right, that was my concern.
Now, obviously, that wasn't made clear. But I mean, that's the
And
accuracy,
the, and
right?
the problem is, the things are happening pretty quickly, and so all
They
it
are.
takes is somebody to take something a little bit wrong and get the message mixed up, and there you go. And
Yeah.
we know how things work.
I know,
That's
but the email
unfortunate.
says the board refused to meet, because I think you say that in the email too. That
Yeah,
The board
board-
refused to
yes.
meet with OSERS. And so now you wonder why the board is probably reluctant when Lance is sending things out that didn't come from this body, but yet he's a trustee. It creates all kind of, guys, I'm only gonna be here for 3 months. I'm retiring in 3 months. But these are the kind of things that don't help us. And they just don't. And I'm just trying to call it like I see it. As a vested OSERS member, this doesn't help us, and it doesn't help the district. And I'm the guy that tomorrow night is gonna be a part of, with Don's help, make some major budget cuts to meet our arc. And I just don't see how this divisiveness helps us. I just don't see it. And sending emails like that don't reflect what we've talked about here, I don't see how that helps us. I just don't see how it helps us. And that's the history of the challenge we've had that we've talked about. And why you board members, my board members, I struggle to get them to see us trying to work through things. Because when you do that,
Okay.
and so, like I say, I'm only here for 3 more months, so don't worry about anything I say. But I am a vested OSERS member, and I care a lot about it because even though I'm already retired and drawing a pension, I did get a raise because of the budget change, the cuts from Trump, by the way.
You got that too, huh?
I did. So, I just don't understand it all. I really don't. I'm mesmerized. I think I see both sides of it. And I think it's unfortunate, and I just think it's difficult to make progress. So if we can send a note to Coulterman to let him know that we have voted in neutrality with opposition.
We did.
That would be helpful.
We did that already as soon as the vote was passed.
Okay. Well, hopefully that will help, because that's not what they're hearing now as a result of the email. That's their interpretation of it, so it's frustrating for me, guys. I'm just being honest. It's just frustrating.
Okay, now,
Okay.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I think the board here should try to act as one the best we can. Now, everybody here has their own opinions and those kind of things, and I'm not going to try to change those, but to the best that we can, we should try to act as one, I think. And I think that's important. With respect to the board, I think if you look at this entire process over the last 2 years, the thing that has been done behind our back, the things that have been done behind us, I'm frustrated by that too, and have been for a long time.
I know,
So
and I don't blame you.
there's enough has gone on to make us both bad, but
But we don't need to continue.
we don't need to, and we don't want to.
Right.
Exactly, and my hope is that we won't have to do that going forward. We want to do what we can to help here, obviously, so that's
I understand.
I feel the same way that Don just mentioned.
Okay, Cecilia, let's go on with the financial report here.
All right, your first set of financials are for the period ending January 31, 2018. And it reflects that our total net position was $1.255 billion. But I also want to note, and this will be a discussion for a little bit later, this January 31 statement reflects investment activity as of December 31, 2017. If you flip over to the change in net fiduciary net position for the month of January, we ended the month with an operating surplus of $21.5 million, meaning between the net realized gains from investments plus the contributions that were put into the plan along with the state service annuity and some other little receipts, netted against our expenses for that month, which is retiree payroll, refunds, personnel cost, and other professional fees that were paid that month, we netted $21 million. So that was a good month. All right.
Is that because our investment returns were that much better for the month? Is that a big?
Well, and remember, it's our investment returns are always going to be a month lag.
So for the last
Yeah.
month reported.
Yeah. For our cash position at the end of January was $9.2 million.
And when you say cash position,
That
this
is cash held in OSERS name here at OPS for the upcoming month's expenses. And then if you flip one more page, our budget variance for the month of January reflected expenses of $39,000 in addition to staff payroll. Okay. All right, now flipping over to the month of February. Our net position at the end of February was $1.251 billion. Those are assets in the OSERS Trust. For the month of February, our net operating was a loss of $4 million. Which means that in reality, really what it is that our investment income our investment reports did not come in time. So they're not being reflected. So this is our normal. Contributions came in, some service annuity service annuity money came in, and then our annuitants, our refunds, and other expenses were $10.5 million, and so we had a net operating loss that February of 4.2.
So does this mean then that in March we'll double up on our investments and potentially?
They're trying to catch up. That's a conversation we're going to have a little bit later in our meeting, yeah. And then at the end of February, we had a cash position of $11.1 million.
Why is that so high? Because I assume our payouts aren't going to be more than they were in prior months.
That's another issue we are working through with accounting because of the way they are. I get a report, and it's nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet that says, please ask for this amount of money. I've sat down with the, not the manager, the supervisor, to help walk through, why do I have excess money? So this month, we're asking for a little bit less. It's not a good mechanism right now.
I mean, so February, roughly, how much would you be paying? I mean, I guess it'd be March, how much did you pay out that this comes out
So
to
March, we paid out
9 million something?
10 total. 10 total, 10 million total.
So
So
there's
we
an
should
extra
have a
$1
little
million
bit
bucks.
left over, exactly.
But we shouldn't have to have it left over.
Exactly.
It's not working for us by being here. Okay. That kind of goes back to that whole issue that we've kind
Of
of.
trying to separate the accounts, which
forgot
I am
that.
being told cannot be separated. So,
Well, we'll see about that. But we need to, once the legislature gets done and we have more time, let's.
Go back to that
we need to
issue.
Go back to that.
So how much cushion do you see that you should have in the checking account? I mean, will be a reasonable,
reasonable for any unexpected,
Yeah.
200,000. Just,
Oh, that
something
low,
came
okay.
up, yeah. And because we have a good idea of what the pension is, and we have a good idea of what the refunds are gonna be. It's all of a sudden, an accounts payable that we weren't anticipating came in or something like that.
But remember what happens if we don't have enough in our fund to pay some bill that we have, it just gets paid from some other fund. We, in a sense, borrow it from some other fund that's in this, because this one account has multiple funds in it, of which we're just one. So if we go short,
Right.
it comes out of some other account. They don't go overdrawn. The district pays out the bill. Conversely, if it goes the other direction, someone else is short, they might be borrowing our funds to pay the bill. And that's the whole problem I think we have with these being trust funds. They shouldn't be.
wasn't that what the accountant report said?
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
And we just haven't taken the time to sit down with accounting here and with the bank to try to figure this out.
It's really sitting down with the bank, because, we've sat down with accounting here, and unfortunately, this is the way it's always been done.
But see, now we have our own account. Now we have our own OSERS bank account, which we didn't before, not just a fund. So it should be able to be handled differently because of that. But we have to work through that. And we haven't pushed it. We've had so many other things happening that we haven't, so.
Okay, and then for the month of February, our budget variance report reflects a bit of catch-up. So in addition to staff payroll, we had roughly $70,000 in accounts payable catch-up. Which, also keep in mind, February is mid-cycle for the fiscal year. Okay, meaning we're 6 months in. And overall, we are roughly halfway, on all our line items, we are roughly halfway through the allocated budget. Also, in your package, I'd like to start the discussion. I want you to please start thinking about the 2018-2019 budget cycle. Okay. I've taken a stab at looking at where our expenses are. And if you look at the summary page, that's titled 2018-2019 OSERS Proposed Budget for April Retirement Board Meeting Discussion. Using the February midway point, and not touching staff just yet, I've been able to reduce the projected budget or proposed budget down by 9.6%. Okay.
$150,000. told me that?
You know what, I didn't look at the total number, sorry, I was just working in percentages.
Okay.
But that, and now that reflects, that 9.69 reflects salaries, employee benefits, purchase services, except I am not factoring in bank service charges and portfolio management fees, okay? And I'm not factoring that in right now because we are having difficulty with OPS accounting being able to extract those numbers from the accounting reports we receive from State Street and reflect those numbers into our budget variance report under their respective line items. So to date, we don't have a good handle on how much we really are saving or not saving on management fees with the investments managed by the Nebraska Investment Council. Because I think people forget it's not just the management fees. We are also responsible for the Nebraska Investment Council institution administrative fees. We are charged back for the cost of their salary, the cost of their rent, the cost of their common area maintenance charges. They are apportioned back to OSERS at a percentage. And unfortunately, OPS accounting has not been able to extract that information from the statements.
So before this was transferred to the NIC, and we were able to get this
Yes.
information, it's because of State Street, I guess, that we can't get this information easily anymore, is that
Well,
the case?
it's a matter of accounting sitting down with State Street, which I've offered on numerous occasions, to sit down and work through what the numbers mean, what statements mean, where they can find the information they're looking for. And I have elevated this request to the Chief Financial Officer.
I mean, Mark, if there's something that you could do to help with this, I mean,
No,
we're hitting a dead wall here, and we just can't seem to get the information,
and I know that school board members have asked for the same information, but,
I could ask, I didn't want to say anything about it. Just-
no, you didn't know.
so it isn't like State Street just says, here it is.
No.
It's hard to, you have to extract the information
Right.
from, and that's where they're having difficulty. But before, it wasn't
It
that
wasn't at all,
difficult?
no. So again, if you turn it over, you'll see some of the reductions. I encourage folks to take a gander. If you have some suggestions, please get your suggestions back to me. I will work on this some more. I'm working with Human Resources, and we'll come back with another proposal next month.
Because I've asked Jim and I to work kind of on a budget committee to kind of come up with this, so we'll be taking whatever suggestions that you might have, if there's other things, get those to Cecilia here within the next couple of weeks. We'll work on putting that information here, but I think what we've done already, we've got a good start in terms of, cutting back on some of the budgeted items here, so it looks good. And like you said, it's the salary piece that's kind of an issue because of some of the human resource issues we have right now with what's going on in the office, so. But hopefully that'll become clearer here over the next 30 days. Okay?
Okay.
And I know I'm a broken record on this, but I think tomorrow night, Don and I on the budget advisory committee, we're cutting $26 million to meet the ARC payments. And one of the cuts that group's making, I know they'll recommend it, it's in the top priorities, is to reduce travel budgets. I think symbolically, it would be good for this board to take an active step on creating a very conservative travel policy and reducing what we spend to travel. I think people, because they hear a lot about it, and so I recognize it doesn't mean a hill of beans and the numbers, the big numbers of it all. But that's, like I say, I've talked about it a lot, but only because people talk to me about it a lot. So I'll leave that with you guys again.
And I'd encourage you, if you have people calling and talking about it, encourage them to call Cecilia, we never hear that, so why they don't call the source, I don't know. But
I do, and I know, for example, that's
I'd
a
be curious.
principal that was here earlier today, Beth Holland. She's called Cecilia. You've talked to Beth Holland. That's Beth Holland, yeah. That's who you've talked to on the phone. And so she's an example of one of those folks that continue to talk to me, and that's why she's here, and she's talked to Cecilia. So, and I do always tell them, I tell them what I know, I say call Cecilia.
Tell them to call, we can talk about what goes on, what happens, I think that's being important. So. Okay, but get those suggestions to us, and we'll work on that, have a better proposal then for you next month. Because when does the budget need to be?
May.
Oh, it needs to be done in May.
Well,
so.
they'll start the process of me entering in data in May.
So maybe we'll try to send it out ahead of the next meeting, so you have a chance to look at it, so you don't just hit it cold.
The Friday
here.
before.
You'll have it, so, okay. All right, we'll move on to the portfolio performance.
Okay, so in your package are the highlighted pages. You got the full report in your PDF, but in your package are highlighted pages. And so unfortunately, when I was copying, it didn't necessarily come through, but the first page that says highlights, I just want to emphasize that as of December 31, 2017, the OSERS portion of the portfolio, the OSERS portion of the $27 billion portfolio managed by the Nebraska Investment Council, the OSERS portion is $1,251,965,486. I will then draw your attention to page 5, which is titled Asset Allocation and Performance, and bring to your attention that for the fourth quarter ending December 31, 2017, the OSERS portfolio returned, had a percentage return of 3.8% against its policy index of 3.3%, so a gain of 5 bips. Or 50 bips. For the 1-year period ending December 31, 2017, the OSERS portfolio as well as the policy both returned 13.5%. And this is the number that will be used in our actuarial valuation that is coming forward next month, titled January 1, 2018.
And that's after 1 year of Nick having this. Because they started January 1.
Correct. This is 1 full year. They started January 1.
But Nick only controls approximately
75%, yeah.
75%, whereas the rest were still, which was my question on the email, how can we get them to, I don't know what the timeline is to get out of those investments that are performing so poorly, like the J.P. Morgan Maritime and the Timberland and the India property.
An analysis was done down at the NIC by the investment consultant Aon, and the conclusion was, this is when the assets were first taken over, and the conclusion was it was too much of a fire sale.
Yeah.
To
Have they
take-
not re-looked at it again, though? That's a year ago, so that's all we have right now. Is there a way to get a year later an assessment on, because I agree, I understand that you don't want to take a fire sale and lose that, but on the other hand, the J.P. Morgan Maritime, I think it's, golly, 12% down, and Vaquero, of course, 6% down, plus the 2% that we pay for the management fee for Vaquero. I mean, they cost us so much money, it kills us.
I have personally asked to have the Vaquero agreement
Yeah.
renegotiated because we did properly submit a redemption request.
Yeah.
And I requested that the contract be renegotiated, and it was to no avail.
What can we do to encourage that when we look at these kind of numbers? What can we do to support and assist that?
Well, we don't have any control over the investments any longer, so there's really nothing we can do. You can ask. I mean, I would encourage you,
Yeah.
call Michael Walden Newman
That's
and
what I
ask
was
that
wondering.
question.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if that wouldn't help.
And your remark was to
Wouldn't
know,
hurt.
your request was
Right.
denied because of, by Vaquero, or
The Nebraska Investment Council
did not want to?
did not, they were not in the habit of renegotiating contracts.
Okay.
Do you know what the length of term is right now, currently, without a renegotiated? What's the length of time?
Oh, no. A full redemption has been requested. The issue is that Vaquero would have had to sell some of the bonds at a loss, and so they're working through the portfolio.
Okay, so they're in process, so to
Yes,
speak?
in process.
I mean, is there some way we could get just kind of a report on these few and
Yeah.
what the situation is with them? And might be helpful to have that
Okay.
information, just so we know.
Right.
It could be a moving timeline, but
At least we know what the
What is
timeline
tar-
is,
yes,
whatever it
I
is.
think.
If
Just
it's
some
never,
target-
we'll know that,
Some
but
target dates, if there are target dates
Yeah.
in the contracts. so.
and to get a call, may help spur him on a little bit
Right.
to do something, even though he doesn't have to,
I
so.
understand that, but I think he wants to be helpful. I haven't
He
seen him
does,
not
no.
want to be, so.
Absolutely.
I'll call him.
Absolutely wants to be helpful. I don't think there's a question about
Yeah,
that. so.
yeah.
It's also important to note that since inception, and inception in this case is using data going back to 1989. So since inception, this portfolio, as it's been redesigned, has returned 9.3%. So it has been over our old assumption rate as well as our new assumption rate.
Yeah, that's good news.
Yeah.
That's good news. If we didn't have those others dragging us down, what would it have been? Man, it was really good. Shoot.
Okay, the next
Party here.
The next page that I want to reference should be,
Tell
yes,
me what
thank you.
page, because I.
Page 22.
Can I take a half step back to that since
Okay.
inception thing?
Uh-huh.
So does that mean since '89, our fund has returned 9.3, or the asset allocation that we currently have has returned?
It's taking both what the old asset allocation was and the new asset allocation into consideration. So it's the actual returns
What's the actual return?
versus, plus the new asset allocation,
Right, from '89 to now, boom.
9.3%.
And then and that's even with our terrible years in there.
Correct.
And then the state of Nebraska, since inception, was a little bit earlier, so they had a few more down years in there. Theirs was 9.2.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, thanks.
Okay, page 22, titled OSERS Summary of Transition Activity During Fourth Quarter. And so, basically, it is reflecting that there still remains, and this is a little bit off now, but this shows 30.5% is still in illiquid assets and are transitioning. But I know that since December, some more assets have transitioned. That's where we're reflecting. It's down to almost 25%.
And that's where this report would help us know
Yeah.
what's been transitioned,
Transitioned.
how's it. I think that's good.
Okay, and I have that noted. Turning to page 23 and 24 reflect a breakdown of the remaining, of asset managers along with the, what has already been transitioned, and so what each manager's performance has been compared to their policy benchmark. And you will see some managers, like a Walter Scott, that is still reflecting assets, and those are residual assets. It's still being liquidated. I do want to draw your attention to page 24 because that is a much higher number. Under hedge funds, you see OrbiMed still has residual. That is customary with a hedge fund to hold back 10% of the liquidated funds for 1 year to do a final audit for that year, and then the funds will be released. Now, if you turn to page 26, OSERS Private Market Managers, their internal rate of return summary. This is always a 1-quarter lag, September 2017. It reflects that our private equity portfolio returned on average 7.44% for the quarter. And again, that quarter being September 30, 2017. Year-to-date, September 30, 2017, private equity portfolio returned 11.96. The rolling 1 year ending September 30, 2017, private equity portfolio returned 15.41. The 3-year period, 6.3. And since inception, and inception being 1989, 5.52.
So that first one on the list, that SPC, that's, what's his face, right?
Yes.
Pat Casey.
Pat Casey.
Pat Casey,
I'm trying to think of
yes.
his name, Pat Casey. So that's really come on then, hasn't it?
Yeah.
That's great.
The AAVIN, are those new?
No, that's Avon, the Iowa-based company.
Oh, okay. So these private equities, the state is trying to transition out of.
Or just work their way through the remainder of the investment period, through the harvest period. Yeah. Through the life cycle.
You know, but they're kind of doing pretty well, some of them.
Are you going to say something?
I was going to, a lot of those investments have followed a J curve, and we've seen the down part. We're now, I think, in the harvesting part, where we're going to see the returns we were expecting. And I would encourage us not to do that. The private equity.
You're talking about the India property?
No, at the top of page 26.
Private equity
Oh,
portfolio.
oh, okay.
2.6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those things typically follow a J curve, and you want to let that run out as best you can, rather than try to dump it just because you don't like the names.
So you think the others are gonna, do you think the
I
others are gonna come up to the real assets?
I have no crystal ball on the others.
Okay, you see, because I would think we'd want to get out as soon as we could, reasonably, out of the India property, and get totally out of that fund, and get totally out of the maritime fund that's down 12% since inception with the Carroll fund, unless somebody knows something different than what the numbers
Well, if you look at the year-to-date for the maritime fund, it's 17.26. I think we should not try to make our investment decisions based on our discomfort. I think we should let the professionals make those kinds of decisions based on the market.
Which they will. I mean,
Yeah.
We don't get to make them. That's the issue.
don't make them.
But I think the point you're trying to make is a lot of these investments we got into, they were going to be down for a while, but then as over the period of time, we start harvesting the returns. Now here we're cutting off some of that. We're just taking the losses, and we're not going to enjoy the benefits of what we would hope to happen. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen to all of these. I mean, I don't know what will happen to the India fund. I have no idea. But there you are.
Okay, so our real asset portfolio, which includes the Timberland and the JP Morgan Maritime. So for the quarter, on average, returned 1.57. For the year-to-date, returned on average 4.72, but to Mr. Ray's notation, the JP Morgan Maritime for the year-to-date returned 17.26. The 1 year rolling 1 year ending September 30 had on average 1.47. The 3 year was down 7.68, and since inception, only 60 basis points. But to everyone's comment, we are on the other side of the J-curve now. The real estate
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a real important point to
Point.
make. I mean, that's, you know, we've been in that since 2010. Now, all of a sudden, we're starting to make 13, 14, 17% on that investment, which is what we should be doing, so. That, of course, that story will never make it past this room, but that's what happens.
At least it got said here.
I mean, it won't. No one will look at that and say that, because they'll look and say, oh my God, it's down 5% this last year, get rid of it, you know, but they don't understand some of this.
Aon should.
Oh,
They
Aon,
should.
yeah,
They
Aon
should.
understands this,
I
yeah.
mean, and that's
Right.
perhaps part of their reluctance to,
Run it off any
yeah,
quicker.
I mean, I don't know.
Right, I
We
mean,
certainly
I
wanna
hope that's-
ask-
I hope that's
I hope
accurate.
it's-
The
Yeah.
1 year stays, I mean, the 3 years are down 16%, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't care.
But that is that J curve that you're talking about. We anticipated that, so. But those are some questions we can ask at our, when
Right.
Michael is here the next
I
time.
think we're just asking them to
I'd just be curious.
explain their strategy, be convincing that they understand it. I'm sure they do.
But you
And
do-
I would like to hear what, what
You-
he thinks about that.
You
Yeah.
do raise a good point that, you know, the message does need to get out that we're on the other side of the J-curve, and some of the assets that have been referenced before are now returning 17%.
Yeah, but no one will say that. That's my problem.
Okay, real estate. The vintage years go all the way back to 1995. On average, for the quarter, our real estate portfolio returned 29 basis points for the quarter, 2.34% return year-to-date, ending September 30, 2017, 9.36 for the rolling one-year period ending September 30, 7.59 for the three-year period ending September 30, and overall since inception, 9.39%. With some performing better than others, but on average. This allocation of the portfolio has beat the
Expected
assumption
rate of
rates.
return, yeah.
Right.
Again, another important point, I think, to make. I think this Fremont one, we knew that was, that has always been an issue.
Yeah.
And you can see that's continued, so that's one that never made it out of the J curve, it never made the returns. But you can see the ones that have, so. Okay.
And even, all right. And finally, in your package should be the fee pages. And so I just gave that to you as a reference. I just noticed that the fees were not aggregated or averaged. I will ask Aon to do that for the future. Okay, that is our portfolio for fourth quarter ending December 31, 2017. And the State Investment Officer will be at our June meeting to present the first quarter 2018.
Okay. Are there any questions about that for Cecilia? If not, why don't we take a 10-minute break? I kind of neglected to do that. Sorry. I can see